the only chipper you're going to get tonight, too.
Whereas recycling reduces waste stream, thus saving tax dollars and improving our environment. And whereas Keep Roswell Beautiful and the City of Roswell is committed to reducing the waste stream, thus helping the state of Georgia reach a per capita waste disposal reduction goal. And whereas in 2013, over 164,000 trees were collected across the state of Georgia and over 8,000 here in Roswell. And whereas Keep Roswell Beautiful Foundation, Davey Tree Expert Company, the Home Depot, and WXIA 11 Live Television are sponsoring the 22nd Bring One for the Chipper Christmas Tree Recycling Programs. And whereas this program promotes the recycling of Christmas trees into usable materials and provides Roswell residents, schools, and business easy access to drop-out sites and free mulch. Now, therefore, I, Jerry Wood, here proclaim January 4th, my birthday, as Bring One for the Chipper Day. And so where is the chipper going to be locating his recycling centers, Mr. Mooring?
Yes, sir. Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The chipper event will be at the 2 Home Depot stores in Roswell at 1580 Holcomb Bridge and 870 Woodstock Road. They are great stores. Check them out. They have always been very accommodating to help us with the recycling of Christmas trees. The locations will be staffed by Keep Roswell Beautiful board members and volunteers. And if you arrive early enough, you will be gifted with a packet of seeds to start your spring gardens early.
That is a wonderful thing. Well, it's good to have Chipper Day here in Roswell.
And it's a nice green event.
Right. Kay, do we have an employee here who is going to recognize for the EARN program?
Yes, we do, Mr. Mayor.
We want to get him out of here early so they don't have to wait around for the rest of this boring meeting.
Okay, well then, if I could call forward Sharice Glass from the Finance Department and Finance Director Keith Lee. As you know, the EARN program stands for Employees Acting on Roswell's Needs, and this is a cost-saving and efficiency program that was put in place, and the Council has previously approved several EARN submissions. This submission has been approved by the EARN Board and is now before you for approval. The idea was submitted by Sharice Glass, who actually works in purchasing in finance. And Keith, I'll turn it over to you to give an intro about the submission that Sharice submitted.
Thank you, Kay. Good evening, Mayor and Council. Sharice has submitted to us an efficiency program and a cost-saving measure related to the method in which we pay utility bills. She suggested that we use Ghost cards that are used in our P-card program to set up recurring payments for our utilities. And on using this method, we will receive a rebate. Our current rebate is 1% of all expenditures using the P-card program. Based on our total expenditures of utilities, it'll move us to 1.1% as opposed to 1%. That 0.1 makes a lot of difference. But based on the 1.1%, we'd receive a rebate of around $35,000 for paying our utilities through a P-card program. And Sharice submitted that idea, and if she has anything to add, I'd like for her to add something.
Well, we got our rebate check this year. It was around a little over $13,000, and I looked at that and I said, there's just got to be a way we can get a bigger rebate. And then just because of our purchasing policies and procedures, we can't run that much through it. But then I was thinking about it, and I'm like, oh my God, we're going to pay utilities regardless. So we might as well take advantage and get more money out of the state P-card program. Anyway.
Thank you. That is a great idea. Thank you so much. Well, it's and we have, Sharice, thank you so much for that idea, and keep coming and enjoy the rest of your holidays. We also have
since you have given us an extra 2 days off this time. Thank you.
You deserve them, and this council is glad that you're taking advantage of them. And we recognize it's not the most productive time of the year if you're stuck around City Hall. And Kay, we also have a recognition for the Purchasing Institute for an Excellence Award.
Yes, sir. And so, Keith, you can stay there, and Sharice and Corey is here. Corey Sally, our contract manager, and this is an award that the city has received. I believe this is about the ninth year, so I'll let Keith describe the program.
Again, thank you, Kay. As Kay indicated, this is the Excellence in Achievement and Procurement Award. This is an annual award. It's the 9th year that we've received the award. It demonstrates our commitment to excellence in procurement. It also recognizes professionalism, innovation, as well as leadership in the procurement arena. It's based on a set of standard criteria such as customer service, cooperative purchasing, and P-card programs. It's made possible in large part by our ordinances and our policies, the leadership that you all provide, Kay provides, the hard work of our employees here in the city, specifically our purchasing office, Corey Sally, he's our contract manager, Cherise Glass, she's a buyer too, and Cheryl Davis, who isn't with us tonight. She decided to start her holiday a little early. But I would like to say congratulations and how much I appreciate everyone's effort and what goes into achieving this award. Thank you.
Thank you. Let's have a hand for the wonderful Purchasing Department award-winning, world-class. Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you, ladies and gentlemen. Thank you for purchasing is something that's on all of our minds at Christmas time.
Yes, sir.
At this time, we'll call upon Liaison of the Administration and Finance Department, Rich DiPolito. But Peter, I want to thank you for being a loyal and always coming member. We were worried that we weren't going to have any member of the public, but you're always welcome and good to have you here. Rich, you're up.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. First, I would like to congratulate the Finance Department for a job well done and receiving another award, so congratulations, guys. On the administration agenda, we have approval of a resolution to accept the allocations for the project year 2013 home grant funding in the amount of $111,765, and Mr. Fisher is going to present this item.
Thank you, Councilmember DiPolito. It's good to be here this evening, and we also have Danny Blitch, our grants manager, here if there's further questions that you may have. Back in August, you had voted to approve and receive $111,765 for the 2013 home program, and this is to preserve or actually increase, if we can, the stock of affordable housing. These funds have to go to eligible organizations. Organizations such as the Housing Authority of Roswell, the North Georgia Community Housing Development Corporation, better known as Habitat for Humanity, and then also for Homestretch Housing Initiative. All three of those are organizations that are eligible to receive this funding, and all of them have requested funding. So the recommendation to allocate, which is what we're having to do tonight, the money that you have already approved to receive, would be $50,000 to go to the Roswell Housing Authority. Now, if you remember, these are funds for the Veranda at Groveway project that we had previously committed from last year's home funds. Seeing as the time frame of that has shifted, rather than letting those funds just sit out there, you move those to a different area. So we're reallocating 13 because they have to be spent within 3 years. So we've kept that same commitment. We've just moved to a newer funding year so that they still have the full 3 years when they come up with the details for their project. So one recommendation is the $50,000 for the Veranda at Groveway. North Georgia Community Housing Development Corporation, or Habitat, has asked for monies for acquisition and rehabilitation of their homes, and it's $25,294.50, which is the same amount of money that is being recommended to allocate to Homestretch Housing Initiative, and they have two requests totaling that amount. Part of that will be for rehabilitation and acquisition of or acquisition of the properties they have on Opal Drive, and then also some operating expenses related to auditing costs in their organization, which totals up to the $25,294.50. The remaining $11,176 is for administration costs that are split between the Cobb organization that oversees the home grant and ourselves. So it'd be $5,588 apiece for administration, and that totals the $111,765. So those three organizations plus administration is the recommendation for this grant.
Does the council have any questions? Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Fisher, for the administration costs, is that our estimate of what our administration costs will be for both Roswell and for Cobb County?
That's correct. The $11,000, there's a certain amount that we can get for each based on a percentage, and that's the percentage that we can get.
Now, we probably spend a little more than that.
We
you
spend
think?
considerably more than that. We have administration costs from this. We have some from CDBG funds, and then we also have budgeted funds that we use to administer our grants.
All right, so this,
So this is just a portion of it.
okay, thank you.
Yes, sir.
Any other questions? Councilmember Price.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Are there any other entities that are potentially eligible to receive this?
No, ma'am. These are the three that are the qualified CHOTOs. If I'm not mistaken, it's just these three. Yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Move to approve?
Motion by Councilmember DiPolito for approval. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? All in favor of the motion, raise your hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
Our attorney reminded me that I skipped over the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve the consent agenda? Motion by Councilmember Wynn. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Orleans. We have a question from Councilmember Price.
I would like to either extract one or just have a clarification on number
Let's try a
five.
clarification.
Clarification on number 5, please.
Kay can address that, and
Councilmember Price, did you have a question regarding the process related to the marshal's positions being reallocated, or what's the clarification that you're seeking?
Is this a name change, a position change, or will they have to be replaced, or
Okay.
I just didn't understand from the written materials what exactly was happening
And
and why it was not going to have any fiscal note with it.
It doesn't have a fiscal note because those positions, there at the time when we started this process, if you recall through court services, we transferred responsibility of the marshal positions over to the police department. In discussions of how those positions would function, the police chief, and he's here to elaborate on any other questions that you might have, determined that it would be in the best interest of the city and the police department if all those positions were reallocated to police officer 1 so that they could get familiar with the department, so the people in the positions as marshals would not remain in those positions. They would go over to the police department, function until the changes were made. We made some changes to the charter, removing those marshal positions and other administrative items from the charter. So now we're going through the step of reallocating the positions from marshals to PO1s. However, none of the people in the marshal positions will be transferring over to PO1 positions. So we will have vacancies in those positions. The monies were already budgeted for this year, therefore that's not additional positions. It's just reallocating them, changing the name, if you will, from marshal to PO1, but reallocating them over in the police department as PO1s. So those positions will be filled as they're vacated.
So is that additional training, or you're saying it's different, totally different people?
It will be totally different people.
All right, thank you.
any other questions? Do we have a motion? We did. Motion is second. Anyone in the audience have any? Well, this is the consent agenda. Do we have, all in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll call upon liaison to Community Development Department, Councilmember Nancy Diamond.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. This is approval of an amendment to Chapter 15, Section 15.2 of the City of Roswell Code of Ordinances regarding film and photography permitting. And this would be the first reading, and Alice Wakefield is here to talk about it.
Yes, thank you. This is a request to amend Chapter 15 to add film and photo permitting. This is a transition from the current resolution that was approved about a year and a half ago. What we're requesting in this ordinance is that these permits be handled in a three-tier type of manner, where you would have a an annual permit, a one-time permit, and then a permit for media productions, including both film and large-scale photo shoot. If this first reading is approved, we will come back at the second reading with a resolution to set the fees.
Mr. Holmes, if you'd read the ordinance, please.
An ordinance to regulate and permit commercial film, video, and photography in public areas of the City of Roswell. whereas the mayor and council are the governing authority of the city of Roswell, whereas the mayor and council of the city of Roswell are charged with the protection of the public health, safety, and welfare, whereas the mayor and council deem it necessary to regulate commercial film, video, and photography upon city-owned property, buildings, grounds, parks, sidewalks, and roads to ensure orderly and equal access to all. Now therefore, the city of Roswell, the mayor and council of the city of Roswell, pursuant to their authority, do adopt the following ordinance, the text of which is incorporated herein.
Do we have a motion to adopt the ordinance? Approve the first reading.
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilman Diamond to approve the first reading. Do we have a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Anyone in the audience have any questions? Any further discussion by council? Yes, Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Just a clarification. For a photography permit, that just applies to a professional who's actually setting up and so forth. For the casual photographer, is there no impact on that?
If it's a casual photographer that's out taking a picture, there's no permit that's required.
Okay, so at what point is a photography permit
If it's a
actually required?
professional shoot, like if you have a professional photographer that comes in and take engagement pictures of the couple on city property, then a permit is required. Then that can either be a one-time permit with this proposal or an annual permit.
And that's photography just on city property?
If it's on private property, there's no permit required.
Okay, thank you.
Councilmember Orleans.
Just a little question. How do we enforce this? If somebody just goes weekend, we don't have people running around a lot and they go to a city house or property and start setting up and take shots?
Well, we have the park police. They're very good at pointing out to folks and asking to see their permit if they, and mainly when they're doing these types of photo shoot, it's in the parks or it's on city property, such as at one of the historic homes. So the park police is very good at handling that, and because you have to have that permit with you to show that you're properly permitted.
So it's just a matter of whether they're patrolling and see them at that point in time?
Yes, sir.
Thank you.
Any other questions? We've got a motion and a second. Anyone in the audience have any questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll call upon Liaison to the Environmental Public Works Department, Councilmember Kent Eichelhardt.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The item for tonight is approval of the budget amendment to reallocate funds from the Big Creek Wetlands Watershed Improvement Project to the Bacteria Reduction Project in the amount of $45,863.50. Bacteria reduction being a euphemism for something we won't get into, but well, Councilmember Diamond had the best description. But I'll let Mr. Moran go from there.
Yes, sir. Thank you. The Bacteria Reduction Project is an aspect of several of our watershed protection plans. These are required by our NPDES permit from the state. And this is approval for a budget amendment to reallocate funds that were set up for the Big Creek Park wetlands improvement. But the planning work, basically in consultation with the Recreation and Parks Department, they were not going to have funding in the current year for the construction that would be required. So we felt that it would be prudent to reallocate those planning funds to the bacteria reduction project that would help us in some of our other impaired streams to identify sources of bacteria and begin to deal with those issues. And you see the amount of money, it's $45,863.50, and I'll be happy to take any further questions you might have.
So what exactly do we anticipate doing? I never really understood.
We will
other than plan and study.
we will do monitoring. Whatever the monitoring indicates where we find concentrations of bacteria, then they will do stream walks to try to determine sources of that. If we have perhaps a collection of septic tanks or a leaking sewer or a haven for geese, that might be...
So we're just trying to identify where the problem is.
We're trying to identify these areas.
This isn't so much going to cure the problem, it's just going to locate and identify the problem.
In some cases, we will be seeking cures.
How long do you think this will fund this program?
For this year.
Do we fund this program every year?
No, sir.
Well, is this going to be an ongoing program, I guess? I'm setting up $45,000 to do a study. Am I sort of getting myself into a recurring expense?
These specific activities will not be recurring expenses. We will be identifying areas where there may be problems and then seeking solutions for those. As we deal with them, if we don't see reduction in the bacteria, then we'll see what other sources are.
So we're going to sort of like do a citywide survey to find out where the stuff is coming from.
Well, yes, but particularly...
But it's not a recurring $45,000 a year.
Yes, but this is not citywide. This is Hogwalla and Big Creeks.
Okay. Thank you.
Yes,
Any
sir.
other questions? I apologize. I wasn't here for the committee work session when this came up. Councilmember Price.
Well, I like you, I'm not quite sure what this money would be for. Is this an extra person to manage this, or is there an outlay of monies to achieve this?
We would use one of our on-call consulting firms, R2T, which is a Roswell firm that does water quality studies. They have done other things. They were the ones that did the monitoring work and the data development that allowed us to remove Rocky Creek from the list of impaired streams. And so we've had great success with them, and so the idea would be and this is not going to be just a lump sum contract that we hire them and they go do it. This is a cost-based contract that they would do certain things, see where that leads us, and then, collectively with Alice and her staff decide where else will we take it. So this is a not-to-exceed number, the $45,863.
I do hope that you will come back at some point in time and tell us that we have somehow cleaned things up or made a difference. I'm trusting y'all that this is going to make a difference. I don't understand it, but I trust your judgment.
Mr. Mayor, we did clean up Rocky Creek. We reduced the levels of bacteria in Rocky Creek below the action level, and so they were able to be removed from the list of impaired streams. We hope to make similar progress throughout the city, but you may recall, in fact, Dr. Price alerted us to a problem that was in Strickland Creek in Roswell Area Park, and we were able to work with the county to track that down. So this is an ongoing process.
She's a lot cheaper, though. Her nose
I
is
am.
a lot cheaper.
I wouldn't charge you $45,000. I just used my nose, and it's pretty obvious.
Yes, ma'am.
All right. Any other questions?
I did have one question.
Yes.
So does that mean then the Big Creek Wetlands Watershed Improvement Project, where this money will be coming from, will have future needs in the budget?
When money is available to do the construction that will be required. Basically, as you may recall, you were not on council at the time, but we got a federal grant that helped us to construct the wetlands, not the wetlands, but the wetlands project, the park project there, and there were certain features that were installed that need to be modified, and so working with Rec and Parks, we did some work, determined that we needed to do further study to basically create the design of the improvements that were going to be needed. But a couple of months ago, basically, Rec and Parks told us that they were not going to have funds available for the construction work. So rather than spend this money now and then potentially have things change before next year, we felt that it would be more prudent to reallocate the funds to this other worthwhile project and to delay that until next year or when construction money is available.
But that amount will be needed to accomplish that?
Something on that order, yes, ma'am.
Thank you.
Any other questions? Do we have a motion to...
Move to approve.
Motion by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember Dippolito. Anyone in the audience have any questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously. This time we'll call upon Liaison of the Transportation Department, Councilmember Betty Price.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. The first item under transportation this evening is approval for the mayor and/or city administrator to sign the contract with Gresham Smith and Partners for the Big Creek Parkway Phase 3 and 4 planning study in the amount of $350,000, although that's just because we're the organizer of that, but that really the monies from the city coffers will be substantially smaller than that, along with a match. So Colonel Asenbrack will tell us all about that.
Thank you, Councilmember Price. Mr. Mayor, members of the City Council, good evening. We have an exciting project here, which is the study of Big Creek Phases 3 and 4. We put out a solicitation. We got 4 proposals. We are in a partnership with the North Fulton CID. So as Councilmember Price mentioned, the total study amount of the grant is $350,000. That's an 80-20 split, so our match is $70,000. Our partners, North Fulton CID, has agreed to split the match of $35,000 each. So we have $35,000 in this, and as does the North Fulton CID. Because they're a 50% partner, we agreed to, the city would be the sponsor, but they would help us in the selection process. So when we got the proposals in, we handed them copies of the proposals, and our staff did an independent evaluation of the proposals. CID staff did an independent evaluation of proposals. We came together and compared notes, and our preferred consultant unanimously from all of those efforts was Gresham Smith and Partners. So they are the firm that we are recommending to you. As a reminder, or just to sort of add a little context to this, we have the graphic showing Georgia 400, Holcomb Bridge Road, and as you are well aware, we have the Big Creek Parkway currently under design, which is essentially an east-west connector across Georgia 400 that does not connect to Georgia 400. This study will explore the feasibility of connecting from the Big Creek Parkway up to North Point Parkway on the east side of Georgia 400, and also from Big Creek Parkway somewhere to Mansell West Side Parkway on the west side of Georgia 400. And so with your approval tonight, right after the first year, we will give Gresham Smith notice to proceed, and we're very excited, as they are, to conduct this study and see where it leads.
A question. Given that a substantial portion of this would be in Alpharetta, where do they stand on this whole thing?
They are very supportive, Mr. Mayor. They have actually, in discussing this with their Public Works Department, they have a few, not so much on the east side, but they are exploring some connectivity options already on the west side, so this will dovetail nicely into some of their efforts.
Great. Any other questions? Councilmember Price.
Again, the grant funds in the amount of $280,000. That's from ARC?
Yes, ma'am.
Okay, great. So out of our coffers, it's just $35,000.
That is correct.
Great. Well, it's exciting to see that.
Councilmember Dippolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. Mr. Asenbrack, it mentions multimodal connections. Am I to assume we're looking at multi-use trails and bike paths and that sort of thing?
Right, exactly. It will not be just for vehicular. It will obviously be a large component is the car and freight movements, but they will also consider bike and ped.
Okay, so it'll tie in nicely to the Big Creek Parkway in that regard. I know I had asked in committee, but just to clarify, these are not necessarily the two options. They're taking a look at any potential options that would work best in that area.
Correct.
As far as being on the west side in particular, because I know you're showing two different options, but those aren't the only options.
Well, the way the study reads is that Phase 3 basically studies the eastern side of Georgia 400, and Phase 4 studies the western side of 400. So it is certainly open to engineering and feasibility discussions. They'll be discussing environmental impacts, property impacts. That's what exactly this study is going to do. Is they're going to come back to us and say, this is really feasible, this is not so feasible for the following reasons.
Okay, so they may project multiple alignments for one
Multiple
area.
alignments, I could envision, for instance, them coming to us and saying, just off the top of my head, Phase 4 may not be feasible from a vehicular standpoint. It may be feasible, though, from a bike ped standpoint. That may be, or there's some environmental challenges. They could uncover some things that we're not aware of. That's what this study is going to look at.
Okay, thank you.
Another question. Where are we on Phase 1 and 2? We've been working on this for a long period of time. Where are we in that system, and when do we think we're going to complete the study?
January. Well, it's not it. It's the design, Mayor. We're
right, the design.
Finalizing the design now that will go back out to the citizens of Roswell that will show our proposed final alignment. That will come out in January, probably the end of January.
The decision to, I know we have two alternatives. The decision to pick one of the alternatives, the other, we hope to bring that to council for vote in January.
Yes, sir.
Good. I'd like to resolve that issue. Any other questions? Do we have a motion?
Yes.
We have a question. Let me get Councilmember Diamond, then we'll come back to Councilmember Price.
Yes, sir. How long a process is this?
It's probably 14, 16 months for the study.
And I guess the picture I have in my packet is a little different from this one, but I guess it doesn't matter.
Right. This is just a graphic showing that generally this is only certainly for your to help understand what we're sort of studying. Right, just a line on a map right now.
So is the goal to line up with North Point Parkway eventually, or just to get to Mansell?
On the east side?
Mm-hmm. Sorry, yeah.
The east side probably will line up with Mansell because there's really a stub road down there right now, which is kind of what we're looking to tie into.
To Mansell or to North Point Parkway?
Well, it would go to both because there's an intersection at Mansell and North Point Parkway.
Right, but I think as I'm looking at the map that I see here, it looks like one of the older ones. I believe there's a new, pretty sizable apartment complex right at the back of that.
Right. So, you're right. I mean, all that's going to be taken into consideration, sir. We'll look at public and private roads and sort all those sorts of things out. Alignments, elevations, bridge lengths, all those sorts of things will come. It just looks to us at the outset that the eastern side, the Phase 3, will be probably a pretty nice hookup, whereas the Phase 4 side, because of the way the properties Duke and Doris Drive and the way buildings are oriented, and there's wetlands on that side that are much more significant because of the merging of the creeks, it's probably going to be a little bit more problematic. But again, that's what our consultant team will do for us.
Thank you.
Councilmember Price, did you have a question?
No, I was going to make a motion if we're ready.
Do we have a motion?
Yes, I'm very excited to make this motion. I'd love to see the progress in this area. So I move to approve that we sign a contract, Mayor and Council, or Mayor and City Administrator, and/or City Administrator with Gresham Smith for Phases 3 and 4 planning study in the amount of $350,000.
Motion for approval by Councilmember Price. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Orleans. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Thank you.
The next item is approval of a resolution to abandon a portion of Lake Drive in exchange for right-of-way to provide for a future multi-use path. This is in the area of the proposed school. Colonel Asenbrack.
Thank you, Dr. Price. This is another exciting development that we have in the city of Roswell. We have, Fulton County School System is in the process of acquiring land for a future elementary school in the middle of our Midtown project, which is on State Route 9, just north of Norcross. I've got a graphic here, but the idea is that they are acquiring land around this school, and along that point there is a little stub road called Lake Drive. It's sort of a little, you may not even notice it as you drive by there, but this little red line indicates where it was. So here's Route 9, Thomas and Charles Place, and there was just this little dead-end road, and they have acquired the site and the adjoining properties, and they have asked the City of Roswell to abandon that roadbed, which will no longer be needed in their site plan. And in exchange for that, part of our long-term master plan had been to extend multi-use trails along creeks. And so what they are going to do is they are going to abandon a similar sized area, approximately 15,000 square feet, along the bank of the creek, and they will not design it and they will not build it, but they will dedicate that right-of-way to us for a future trail system. So that's a nice workable solution for us.
Any questions? Do we have a motion?
Just one quick question. So this is essentially a swap?
This is essentially a swap.
Okay. Move to approve the resolution to abandon a portion of Lake Drive in exchange for the right-of-way to provide a future multi-use path.
Motion by Councilmember Price. Is there a second? Second by Councilmember DiPolito. Does anyone in the audience have any questions? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
The final item for this evening is approval of a resolution supporting the North Line extension of public transit. Mr. Eisenbracht.
Thank you, Dr. Price. Back in September, the MARTA came to the city. Of course, they have been actually doing quite a bit of studying about the extension of the MARTA North Line, which currently ends at North Springs. And they are studying a variety of technologies. They're studying heavy rail, light rail, bus rapid transit, the concept being that they would terminate at Windward. And so the idea is, where does that go? Which side of Georgia 400? What kind of technologies? Will there be a station in Roswell? If so, what size? If so, where? And so what we have determined, I think, as a collective body is that we in Fulton County are already paying 1 cent to support MARTA, and that we already get service. We would like to go on record as supporting mass transit as a viable option. Of course, there are many elements and many details that still yet to be worked out, but the idea of us supporting mass transit in our area is good for our citizens, it's good for our businesses, it reduces congestion, it improves air quality, it provides transportation choices, and so we have a very small resolution that we provided to you that basically supports the concept, which is really what this does.
Mr. Eisenbracht.
Yes, sir, Mr. Mayor.
Assuming MARTA or its successor moves forward with this,
with the entity,
what do you think a reasonable time frame to be which we would see this?
Your next 65th birthday.
Honestly, we're probably about 10 years out.
The point I want to make to council is you need to make a decision on this, not based upon what Roswell needs today, but what Roswell is going to and North Fulton needs to anticipate in 10 years. So this is a long-term decision. Not do we need to fund this today, but do we think we'll be in the position where we need this in 10 years? Because if we don't start now, it won't be in there 10 years. So I'm supporting it, not because of existing conditions, but because North Fulton is going to continue to grow. Other comments or questions before we entertain a motion? Councilmember Wynn.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I take your comments to heart, but I can't support this resolution, and I'm going to tell you why. I'm a huge proponent of alternative transportation, as you know, Mr. Eisenbracht.
Yes,
I think that's where we've got to go. But until we have an official regional transportation authority where they're going to come with us for a practical, feasible alternative transportation master plan that is really needed there and not this piecemeal here and there, I can't support this resolution. The content, yes, I think it's great that we want to do this, but how it's worded, I think we need a regional transportation. I shouldn't say how it's worded, excuse me. Let me back off on that. I just can't support it until we get a regional transit authority to sit down and see what, just not us, what we need, but what the surrounding area needs. And this piecemeal is just not going to work. Thank you.
Any other comments before we entertain a motion? Councilmember Price.
Everybody on council, with the exception of Councilmember Orleans, although he has suggested he was fine with it, has had an input into the rewriting of the resolution. And I think it gives us the opportunity to entertain any regional agency solving these problems and stepping in. So it certainly doesn't lead us down one specific road. It's really embracing all possibilities. And also we did add a resolved that's on the reverse of the page that we're actively soliciting any of those entities that our Roswell residents would be active participants in the planning and implementation of these improvements. So I don't think it's something that's going to get crammed on our throats, but it's us recognizing the need and us asking to be part of the process. So I don't think that this will take away any of our rights or indicate that we're definitely embracing any specific plan, but only that we're knowing of the need and that we want to be part of the process. So given that, I'd like to move to approve this resolution.
Motion to approve the resolution by Councilmember Price. Is there a second?
Second.
Second by Councilmember Eichelhardt. Councilmember Wynn, I understand your concerns. I also believe that Atlanta, the Metro Atlanta, needs a consolidated system. In talking with other mayors, I think we all recognize MARTA is not the best vehicle to do that. It needs to be a new vehicle. So I support everything you said, but I see this as not saying I support MARTA as much as I support transit. And because we're talking about transit, MARTA did a study. We mentioned MARTA, but we're not tying this to MARTA. We're tying this to transit. I'm supporting transit. I'm going on record as saying I don't support MARTA being the only provider. I support a consolidated program. Brandon Beach is taking the lead on this. That's the direction we're going in. It's going to take a while, but I think in the 10 years it's going to take to get this project up and running, if we're lucky, that we have plenty of time to straighten out the system. And I'm really not talking about who runs the transit as much as the need for transit. So I do support it. We have a motion and a second. Councilman Orleans.
Well, you had made comments earlier, and I was just going to kind of reiterate a few things, but you just kind of went through the whole thing again, so I don't know if I should say anything. I was just going to say I agree with Councilwoman Wynn on consolidating, as I think we all have said, in these services for the metro area, and we all need to work in that direction, and I think we need to promote it. But as Councilwoman Price had said, we need to be involved in the process, and this is regarding transportation in general, so I think we do need to move forward with it. Thank you.
Councilmember Diamond.
I agree definitely with Councilmember Wynn, and I appreciate the chance to rewrite some of the clauses to not specify that MARTA be the one doing this, but I applaud Mr. Eisenbracht's eternal optimism, but I think 10 years is really optimistic. And I look at it as more of preserving rights for the future councils, because I don't see this coming in a very, very long time. And my concern is that if we're not on record being supportive of this, that we might get bypassed for the future. And I don't for a minute think they're anywhere close to funding it or doing anything about it, particularly when we weren't the only line that they don't have money to fund that they're talking about. But I'm not so much in support of MARTA, obviously, but I think this, not in support of the current form of MARTA and the way it's been operating, but I am heartened by the new chief that they have brought in, and I hear good things, and I'm hopeful they're going to coordinate in a better way, but I do look at it as more of a preserving our rights than...
Councilmember DiPolito.
Thank you, Mr. Mayor. I, too, agree with Councilmember Wynn. I think it's critically important for us to have a regional organization that pulls our transit together. I do, however, support the resolution. I think it's important to point out that the resolution encourages the study of a placement of a transit station in Roswell. It doesn't actually commit or even say that we encourage placement. It just says we encourage the study of. So I think what we're saying is that we encourage transit in the 400 corridor and how that happens and where ultimately the transit stations wind up being placed is still a matter of discussion and certainly requires a great deal of public input. So I support the resolution.
I appreciate all that, but again, I think it's great, and I know it's going to pass, which is great, but the thing is, I just cannot support it if it's not a regional transit authority that's doing this. And I understand the intent, and Martin might not be here in 10 years, but there's no guarantee. And I just don't like the piecemeal. I just would like to see it all one on a master plan and say, this is what we want to do. And I have to disagree. It does say a current draft study shows the transit station in Oakham Bridge and 400. Is that the right place for it? I don't know. Again, I don't see the whole picture. So I appreciate all the work that you've done, and Mayor and Council, everything that they've done, but I just cannot support this how it's right now. Thank you.
Anyone wish to speak from the floor? Any further discussion by council? All in favor of the motion, raise their hands. That is Councilmember Orland's. All in favor, raise their hands. That's Councilmember Orland's, Price, Eigelhart, Dippolito, and Diamond. All opposed. Win. Passes 5-1. It's almost Christmas time. We have a recommendation for closure to discuss personnel litigation, real estate. Do we have a motion? So moved. Motion by Councilman Eigelhart, second by Councilmember Diamond. All in favor, raise their hands. Passes unanimously.
Merry Christmas
Enjoy
to everyone.
holidays and Christmas.
Find that place, sir. That one to your left.